Let's talk about why you could be the most technically trained dancer in the room and still not make it past semifinals or finals and onto the team. I want you to start thinking about this as a job interview versus just being a dancer who is really good and ready to make their dream team. Because when you start thinking of this as a job, you might start treating your experience differently, right? You have a job description, you have requirements, you have the elements of the job description that you need to either have experience with or you don't, right? And so when you treat this entire experience like a job interview, you show up differently. So when a team is looking for new members, they aren't just hiring dancers, they're hiring entertainers and someone who is a brand ambassador and out in the community. You are also going to be representing these teams and the league in front of thousands and thousands of people. And I want you to think about the job description and the elements that come with being on a team. You have your game day, right? So you have practice, you have the performance, you also have greeting fans and suite visits and timeouts and different elements where you'll be on TV or on the big screen. All those pieces come with being a brand ambassador and a representation of an organization. And it's not just about your dance skills in those elements. You also have appearances where you could be reading to children, you could be at a hospital, or you could be doing something like a takeover, a surprise and delight. You also go to sponsors' headquarters and do meet and greets. There was one time where we had a Habitat for Humanity appearance, and my teammate and I helped build an entire house. All those different elements come with this job. I want you to think that your dance skills is the baseline versus it being your competitive advantage. When you think about, I'm a really great dancer, I'm a technically trained dancer, you're thinking, I could potentially outdance everyone in the room, or I could potentially be one of the best in the room. However, that is not necessarily the entire thing that gets you onto the team. It's all of these other elements. And so when you think of your job description of being a pro dancer, and dance is just one piece of it, how can you hit all of those other elements? And then I want you to think about what being a hireable team member looks like. Can you represent your teammates, the organization, when you are in front of a room full of sponsors? Or when you are getting interviewed on radio visits or TV interviews. There's so many different elements that come with being on a team that you need to be able to check those boxes when you're on the team, right? And so the judges are looking, how can we pick the best dancer and the best representation of the team and organization that we possibly can. And it's blending those two together. Also, being hireable is, how do you handle feedback? Are you coachable? Do you have an attitude when you get constructive criticism? All of those elements are part of the process. And how are you going to be a teammate to everyone around you? Those are important factors in not just being an individual solo dancer, but being part of a team. And then lastly, being hireable is, do you have the maturity to have that uniform on and be the representation of the organization first, last, and always? Even if the uniform comes off, you never stop having that representation. I know I would go to a Christmas gathering. Oh, Amira, tell everyone what you do. Tell them how you're a Warriors dancer. You never just get to be you anymore. You are then the representation of the organization. So everything you say, everything you do, everything you represent is getting judged, for better or for worse. Even if your uniform isn't on, do you have the ability to be that representation all the time? And I want you to shift this thinking of, am I a good enough dancer, to how can I show up and be the full package? We're talking about elements that include your interview skills, include your people skills, and your dance skills. There's so many different layers to the pieces of the puzzle that get you onto the team. And so how can you show up as the full package versus just how can I be the best dancer in the room? And I think when you think about being hired for a job versus a gig, like there is nothing about this job that is a dance gig. You are committing to however long the season is, right? You have NFL, which is not as long of a season, and then you have NBA, which is almost year round, right? And when you are committing to being on this team, it is not a gig that you can like bop in and bop out of. It is truly a full-time commitment with almost like a part-time expectation. And so when you wrap your mind around this is a job that I'm applying for, how can you show up differently? Look at those requirements, look at the job description, look at what is being expected of you, and show up with those elements. Because here's what the judges are looking for in the different rounds. First round, it's your prelims. You might submit a video, you might have in person. It depends on the team and their process. And every team has different options during their different rounds. So you could submit a video of your own choreography. It could be pre-choreographed that you submit. You could be in person and doing just technique or across the floor, learning a routine. It really does depend on the team and what their auditions are that year. So first round, judges are looking to see, can you dance? Can you pick up choreography? Can you do the fundamental technique pieces that they're looking for? I was fortunate enough to be a preliminary judge for the Buccaneers cheerleaders this year, and we watched all of the submitted videos, and the dancers submitted their own choreography, and they had to have elements that were expected of them, that was on the application, that was in described to them of what was needed. And if they didn't have those elements in the choreography, they did not move to the next round. And so the judges are looking for, are you fundamentally listening to the instructions? Are you prepared to learn choreography or submit choreography? And do you have the skills, technique, your turns, leaps, kicks, anything else that that specific team is looking for? And then also, how do you retain choreography if that is an element of that audition? That is the baseline for round one. And then everything else stacks on top of it. So round two, you're most likely in person learning on the spot. So can you learn? Can you entertain the judges? That is what I think the next piece is. Entertainment. Going back to being the best technically trained dancer in the room. If you give me fouettes out the wazoo, but you have nothing going on your face, it's not going to translate to the judges. While they appreciate dance, they love dance most likely, most of the judges in front of you, they're looking for entertainment. How can you draw the judges in? How can you keep their attention on you and entertain them with your performance of the choreography that you were given? Next is most likely going to be interviews, whether it's part of semifinals or the final process. And the interviews are to see how you would represent the brand and if you're a good fit for the team and the ecosystem of the dance team organization. You are spending 3 to 7 days a week with the team, with your coaches, with your teammates, with everyone. You need to be able to have a personality that meshes well with others. I'm not saying you have to change your personality, but for the team for that year, are you going to be a fit? Do you have an attitude, or are you working really hard and you have a growth mindset? Those are two different personalities that, depending on the team, the judges are going to pick someone who has a growth mindset over someone who doesn't think that they need to work on things. And so making sure that you are the right fit for the team is what the judges are doing or the coaches are doing during the interview process. They're also looking to see, are you someone who can think on your feet and be able to talk to sponsors, season ticket holders, fans, ownership at any given time throughout the season. And then you have your final rounds. A lot of teams now are doing finals in person with an audience. And so you are having the ability to be on a stage and entertain people other than the judges. Even if it's just the judges in front of you, that the final round is putting everything together, all those different layers, and being that representation and that full package and showing that you have what it takes. I think the biggest downfall that I've seen of dancers who are in finals is that they let the stress take over their body and they completely internalize everything and dwindle away. And if you're not killing it, prelims, semifinals, interviews, and finals, you could have a very different judging panel at prelims than you have at finals. And if the prelim judges saw you crush it, but the finalist judges didn't see you crush it, it's hard to fight for you in that deliberation room because you have to be able to show it. When your job is on the line of getting it or not getting it, how do you react? Because when you are dancing in front of thousands and thousands of fans, how are you going to react? And so that is what the judges are looking for during finals is how do you present yourself? How do you grab the attention? And how do you perform in front of an audience or under pressure? So I want you to take a couple minutes and I want you to start researching teams. I want you to know what you are getting yourself into stylistically from the audition process. Start looking at teams. I have so many dancers who come to me and they're like, what team do you recommend? Or where do I start my research? Google, ChatGPT, anything that you have at your fingertips, start doing your research. I can't give you those answers because every person is unique and you are going to want to be on a different team and a league dependent on your situation. And I want you to be self-sufficient because if you are going to come to your coach and ask them a question for every single thing, you will not make it onto the team because you need to be self-sufficient. And I want you to start thinking, how can I bring all of these elements of this role and start showing up like the full package? And if you're questioning, what does the full package look like? How do I get help with this? I would love to invite you to apply for our 6-month training program. You can apply at thecultivatecode.co/apply. And I would love to learn more about you and see if our program is the right fit. And I just want to remind you that technically trained dancers, the best dancer in the room, might not make it because they didn't show up like a full package. And you can show up like the full package with elements of every single thing that we just talked about and truly make it onto a team if you put intention behind it and show up like the full package that the judges are looking for.